Every afternoon after school, the children loved to play in a huge garden that surrounded a deserted castle. They loved to play there. One day while playing, a great voice yelled out, "What are you doing in my garden?" It seems the giant had returned back to his castle, and he did not want the children to play there. He shouted at them and told them to leave and never come back. They all ran away as fast as they could. The giant then built a huge spiked fence around his garden, so none of the children could ever get in. The giant put a large gate in the fence with a sign that said, "Keep out," in big black letters. The children would pass by and look sadly at their favorite place to play. They really missed playing in the beautiful garden. Soon fall and winter came and covered everything in snow and frost. The giant looked out his castle window at his snow-covered garden and wished for spring to come. Spring did come, everywhere except in the giant's garden. The snow and frost were thrilled to have a place to stay forever. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard a bird singing. He leapt from his bed to look out the window. His whole garden was in spring bloom. The snow and frost were finally gone. Then he noticed all the children playing in his garden. You see, they had snuck into the garden through a hole in the wall, and spring had followed them in. One little boy was crying because he could not climb the trees like all the other children. He was just too small to reach. The giant helped the small boy to the top of the tree. The little boy gave the giant a hug and a kiss and said thank you. The giant thought it was time to let the children play in his garden, so he knocked down the big wall. The children played every day in the giant's beautiful garden. When the giant realized he had not seen the little boy he had helped to the top of the tree, he asked the other children, "Where is your little friend?" "We do not know," said the children. The giant asked the children every day if they had seen their little friend. The children told the giant, "The only day we saw him was the day you knocked down the wall." The years passed and the giant grew old and weak, and he could no longer play with the children. One cold winter morning, he was looking out the window, and he noticed the most beautiful tree he had ever seen.
Wow!
The tree was covered with delicate white blossoms with silver fruit, and beneath the tree was the little boy who had gone missing for so long. "He's come back at last," said the giant joyfully. Forgetting how old and weak he was, the giant rushed down the castle stairs and hurried across the garden. But as he neared closer towards the little boy, he saw bruises and cuts and nail marks in his hands and feet. "Who has hurt you?" asked the giant. "As old and feeble as I am, I will kill the people who have done this to you." The small child smiled gently and said, "Hush, don't be angry, but come with me." "Who are you?" whispered the giant, falling to his knees. "A long time ago, you let me play in your garden," the child replied. "Now, I want you to come and play in my garden. It is called Paradise." That afternoon, when the children came to play in the garden in the winter snow, they found their giant friend lying dead. The old giant looked so peaceful. He seemed to have a beautiful, peaceful, gentle smile on his quiet face. The giant was covered in small, beautiful white flower blossoms. The children thought he looked so happy and at rest. They said sweet prayers for him to be playing with children angels in a gorgeous paradise garden forever. The children always remembered the giant for his kind heart and generous spirit, and played in his garden forever. Once upon a time, there was a man and his wife that had wanted a baby for so long, but had never had one. One day, the wife gave her husband the awesome news that they had waited so long for. They were going to have a baby. They lived in a house overlooking a big garden full of fresh vegetables and flowers. Sadly, the garden was protected by a high wall with barbed wire on the top. The mighty witch who lived there wanted no one in her garden. Everyone was very scared of the mighty witch. One day, the wife was so hungry for the fresh radishes. She saw them growing in the witch's garden, but she knew she could not have them. Although she really, really wanted them, she thought she might die if she did not have them. Her husband worried so much about her. She told him, "I think I will die unless I can have some of those radishes that grow in the witch's garden." Her husband waited for nightfall so he could climb over the wall to get her some of the witch's radishes. He got her some and climbed back over. She made a big radish salad, and it made her feel so much better. But she knew she wanted more radishes. So her husband snuck over the wall at night to pick more radishes. As he was climbing back over the wall, the witch was standing right below him. "How dare you steal my radishes?" said the witch. "My wife thought she would die if I did not get them for her. I am very sorry." "If this is true," said the witch, "you can have all the radishes you want, on one condition. You must promise to give me your child to raise as my own." The man was so scared he agreed to whatever she said just to get away. When the beautiful child was born, the witch came and took her away, just as she had threatened. She named her Rapunzel, which means radish. Rapunzel grew more and more beautiful every day, and on her 12th birthday, the witch locked her up in a high tower deep in the woods. The tower had no stairs, no door, only a small window. Rapunzel had beautiful long hair that had never been cut, and when the witch wanted to go up to see her, she would cry, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The witch would climb up her hair to see her. This went on for years. One day, a prince was riding by the tower and heard Rapunzel singing. He looked at the tower but had no idea how to get in. So he left. But he came by the next day and saw the witch crying, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And he saw the beautiful girl who sang, let down her hair for the witch to climb up to see her. The prince returned at dusk and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel could not believe it when the young prince appeared, and it was not the witch. They fell in love at first sight. They made a plan for Rapunzel to escape. The witch found this out and cut off Rapunzel's hair and hid her away far from the tower. That night, the witch waited for the prince. He cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The witch threw out Rapunzel's hair, and he climbed up. To his surprise, it was the witch, not Rapunzel. The witch cursed him. "You will never see again." And with that, he was blind. For some time he wandered the forest, hoping to hear Rapunzel singing again. And then, one day, he heard her singing. He followed her voice and found her. They hugged and Rapunzel cried, so happy to see him again. One of her tears fell on his face, and a miracle happened. He could see again. "Oh, I am so happy to see you again," said the prince. And then another miracle happened. Rapunzel's beautiful hair grew back, as long and shiny as it had been. The prince took Rapunzel to his kingdom far away from the witch, where they lived happily ever after. One day, the infant son of research scientists who were working in the jungle wandered off when they were not looking. The small baby boy was found by Bagheera, the very nice Black Panther. Bagheera thought the baby would be safer with the wolves and their baby cubs. Bagheera left the baby for the mother wolf to find. The mother wolf named the boy Mowgli, and they agreed to raise the boy with her wolf cubs. Mother wolf always worried about Shere Khan, the great tiger, coming to take the child away from them. Bagheera taught Mowgli the rules of the jungle and everything he needed to know about all the animals. Bagheera was always there to protect him. The wolves told Bagheera he must take Mowgli back to the human village, where he would be safe from Shere Khan. Bagheera agreed to take Mowgli to the human village. But when he tried, Mowgli got very upset and said he wanted to stay in the jungle with all his animal friends. Mowgli ran off deep into the jungle, where he met a nice new jungle bear friend named Baloo. Baloo and Mowgli played and had a great time. They met some monkeys and their king, who wanted to know how to make fire. Bagheera caught up with Baloo and Mowgli and said they had to get Mowgli to the village. But Mowgli ran away again. He wanted to stay in the jungle. Bagheera and Baloo searched for Mowgli. But the fierce tiger Shere Khan had found Mowgli first. Mowgli, who had grown up around animals his whole life, was not the least bit afraid of Shere Khan, the great tiger. This made Shere Khan very angry. Shere Khan bared his great fangs and let out a giant tiger roar and leapt towards Mowgli. Just then, Bagheera and Baloo arrived. Baloo the bear grabbed the great tiger by the tail and then threw him to the ground with a thud. Baloo had gotten there just in time to save Mowgli. Shere Khan lashed about trying to reach Baloo, but Baloo hung on tight to his tail. Shere Khan tried to shake Baloo loose and cracked his strong tail like a whip. Suddenly, a big storm rose up, and a huge lightning bolt hit a big tree and started a fire. Mowgli knew right away how to help Baloo with the fight against Shere Khan. Shere Khan was very afraid of fire. Mowgli took a branch that was on fire and he ran towards the great tiger. Shere Khan was so afraid of the fire in Mowgli's hand that he ran away deep into the jungle. Bagheera and Baloo cheered. They both knew they would never see Shere Khan around their jungle parts again. Mowgli, Bagheera, and Baloo promised they would never be parted by anything again. They would always be best friends, no matter what. Just then, at the edge of the jungle river, Mowgli saw something he had never seen before. It was a beautiful girl. The beautiful girl was getting water just outside the man's village edge by the river. Bagheera and Baloo were sad, but only for a few moments, as they knew Mowgli had to leave to go to the man village with the girl. They both knew it was the right thing for Mowgli to do. They both saw Mowgli smile as he helped the girl with her water jugs at the river's edge. Then Mowgli waved as he headed towards the man village with the girl. Mowgli's friends knew it was where Mowgli really belonged. They would always be friends no matter where they all lived. Bagheera and Baloo knew they had done the right thing by helping Mowgli find his way safely to his new home, and they all lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there was a large, lush green forest where many animals lived. The forest was home to all kinds of wildlife. There was enough food and shelter for all the animals to live in harmony. There were so many families of animals, including rabbits, birds, squirrels, raccoons, and so many more, including a large group of foxes. One day, a fox was walking through the forest. All of a sudden, he heard a loud snap and knew instantly his tail had been caught in a trap. The fox was very upset as he tried to get his tail out of the trap. Finally, he pulled himself away from the trap, but it cut off his tail. The fox was very sad, and he had a very sore tail. The fox cried and thought he would be the laughingstock of all of the foxes. He had lost his beautiful fluffy tail, and whatever should he do now? He walked deeper into the forest until he had an idea. He decided to have a meeting with all his animal friends to discuss his idea. When everyone had gathered together, the fox started to speak. "Thank you for coming to hear me," said the fox. "The reason I have gathered you here today is to talk about why we have a tail. You see, we have eyes, ears, a nose, teeth, legs, all for some reason. But why a tail? A tail is such a useless thing. It seems to get in the way. People trip over it. It gets in the way when we sit down. So after much consideration, I have cut off my own tail, and I would like you all to do the same. I feel great now that I no longer have that useless tail." The lead fox and all the other animals were amazed at what the fox was saying. They all thought it would be quite painful and had never really thought of themselves without tails.
Wow.
All of a sudden, a younger fox asked, "Are you saying this because you no longer have a beautiful furry tail? Are you feeling embarrassed and just thinking about yourself? Maybe you are worried we might leave you out of our group of friends." The group of animals agreed that the fox without a tail was being selfish, and that it was very mean that he should ask them to cut off their tails too. He just wants us all to cut off our tails so he won't be embarrassed or left out. All the animals were quite upset with the fox without a tail, and they left him to think about what he had asked them to do. The lead fox reminded the other animals about how special their tails were and how they should always be proud of their tails. No one should cut off their tails. They all agreed. The fox without a tail was left to wander the forest alone, as his friends realized he was not a true friend. He had asked them to change, to make sure he would fit in with them. He should have accepted his difference, and his friends would have welcomed him, instead of being upset with the fox without a tail. The fox without a tail wandered for a long time and thought about his decision. He returned to his forest, and his friends forgave him. They accepted him just as he was. The fox without a tail was very happy to be back with his friends. The end.